And yeah, so this dude, black guy, was in the park bird watching, okay? Which, by the way, I don't care what color you are. If you're an adult male in the park bird watching, you're a fucking weirdo. I don't care. I don't care. If lockdown is making you crazy and you're very lonely, don't worry about it. Flip-flops make great lovers. That is an actual fact, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. What's up? It's the Jubal Show podcast. Thank you for checking it out. Jubal Show comes out every single Wednesday on iTunes and on YouTube. Make sure to rate, review, comment, and subscribe to it. Don't forget about the Fresh Till Death podcast, which I do with my hot-ass wife, Alex Fresh. That's where we get high and do stuff. That's every single Tuesday, only on YouTube. It's a YouTube exclusive. And then the Fresh Till Death podcast, every single Monday, iTunes, YouTube. Rate, review, comment, subscribe. All the bullshit that I say every week. If you would do it, then I wouldn't have to say it, but I probably still would have to say it because I want more people to rate, review, comment, subscribe. Anyway, let's move on to fucking flip-flops. Literally. On the show today, though, real quick. So everybody's here. Alex is not here, though. My hot-ass wife, Alex Fresh, has decided to call in sick today. She's taking the day off from the podcast. I don't blame her because I'm also tired and I don't want to do it anyway, but she's taking a sick day. So instead of... Well, she always throws out the hashtag for hashtag StoryTimeWithAlex. So she's not here today because she's sick, like I said. So she gave us the hashtag today, and it'll be hashtag the best time you've called in sick. Best excuse for calling in sick. Best excuse for calling in sick. I wish she was here to do it because she does it much better than I do. But the best excuse for calling in sick, that's the stories that we'll have later on in the show. But Manny Martin is here as always, and John Slaton is here. And before we get into anything else, there's a bunch going on that I want to talk about before we get to hashtag storytime. And of course, the hottest segment in entertainment today, John Slaton's hot celebrity gossip thingy that we don't have a name for yet. I am super excited to see what kind of steamy, hot gossip pile of whatever.
Oh, it's coming.
You put your foot in while you were walking around the park this weekend. But we'll find that out, of course, at the end of the podcast. The reason I bring up having sex with flip-flops is, have either of you guys had sex with flip-flops before?
Never.
No, never? Yeah.
Not even socks.
Me neither. Not even socks. Even masturbation. You've never used a sock to masturbate on?
Well, sure, of course.
Okay, so you've had sex.
But I take my socks off before I masturbate. My feet.
Just in general?
I
you have to be sockless before you do it?
I do. In all occasions, I can't sleep with socks on. I can't relax around the house with socks on.
Okay, because I picture you as more of like if you're getting ready to be intimate with yourself, like putting on some like high socks, like some sexy high socks like how chicks do. That's what I picture you doing by yourself at home.
Nothing else, right? That's
just the high socks. Yeah. Or some business socks. Some really high, normal business socks that you'd wear. But if you've masturbated with a sock before, I hate to tell you, you've had sex with a sock. So I think probably all of us have at some point. But I like to start the show off sometimes with the crazy stories that I saw, and I just saw a story that this guy in Thailand was arrested for stealing over 120 pairs of flip-flops from around his neighborhood and having sex with the flip-flops.
Whoa.
Apparently he would break into people's houses, or if they weren't wearing the shoes inside, take them and then take them home. And according to the police report, would rub them all over his body and then have sex with them. They didn't explain how he had sex with them, but I'm super curious as to how you actually make love to a flip-flop. You guys have any ideas at all?
I don't know. I'm just wondering why he didn't go for any panties. If he's already breaking in, why didn't he?
Well, he doesn't. Panties don't interest him. This guy's a flip-flop guy,
Yeah.
There's people have all kinds of tastes. There's some guys who like thicker girls, some guys like skinnier girls, some guys who like panties, some guys who like flip-flops.
Like flip-flops are dirty as shit, though. I mean, like, why?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what maybe he likes maybe he's like a foot fetish guy.
Yeah, it must be. I like feet fetish for some people is real. I've never really been attracted to feet, but what about you guys?
No. I think feet are my wife's feet are cute, you know?
Yeah.
but I don't want to like do anything sexual to them. You know,
Yeah,
I
nah,
have
man.
sucked on her toe one time, but as a joke.
Is it?
You know, because I was talking about like how weird it is that people, you know, get off on feet, and I'm like, I'm gonna suck on your toe, and she's like, I dare you to. Then I did it, and then I felt really gross after. I was like, I just sucked on a toe. You know?
I've gotten into it a little bit.
You got into the foot fetish
Sure.
stuff?
I mean, no, that's the point where I'm still in flip flops. But I like cute feet, cute feet. And,
Yeah, cute feet are great.
But I mean, and I've had, you know, a foot in my mouth while I'm having sex. Sure.
Your own or somebody else's? Because it's like, why do you think I do yoga 5 times a week so I can put my own foot in my mouth while I'm having sex?
Yeah.
I mean, I see how that could, in the moment, that could be fine, but you're not a foot fetish guy, though. Like, there's a difference between the occasional
Throw it in the mix.
special occasion.
Sure.
I'm gonna suck on your big toe for a minute, and the like, hey, if I don't suck on a big toe today, I'm gonna have some severe problems. You know? There's a difference between that. I don't know. Comment though if you have a foot fetish, because Alex and I did a podcast. And Manny was on that one too, way back in the, when we started doing this, the Stinky Cheesy Feet one, where we read a whole like message from some dude who had a foot fetish, and the way he was describing how much he loved feet. There's a lot of people out there who love foot fetishes, and not foot fetish shaming if you have one, as long as you're respectful and you're not stealing people's flip flops to have sex with them. I saw that and I'm just like, how, you know, there's a lot of people that get arrested for having sex with inanimate objects. You know, like there's people that get busted having sex with cars, furniture. I just don't understand how you even do it. I mean, the flip flop, if you pull out the toe, like the middle part of the flip flop, there is a hole there. Is that how you do it? I don't know.
I don't know. They're nasty because like I wouldn't go near any toes if, you know, she had been wearing flip flops. You know, I think.
Well,
because
I mean,
they're nasty.
You think about this, like how many people actually wash their flip flops? So I mean, you got the dirtiest of dirty, and like here's a little retro thing, like. You remember at the parlor, the old owner used to have a foot fetish and had multiple like shoe contests, which was just weird as fuck, man. I didn't get it. So.
I had no. John just, I'd had a seizure or something in his microphone. I don't know.
We've all been there.
You okay over there? Yeah, well, maybe, you know what? Maybe John's getting a little more worked up than I thought talking about this whole foot fetish and having sex with flip flop thing. Are you doing okay over there?
Yeah, I'm doing good, but I'm just curious. So, you were part of some shoe competition at work? What's this?
Yeah, so back at the old comedy club we used to work at, before I was the main host, the owner of the place wanted me to be the host of a shoe competition, and there was this giant shoe in the middle of the ultra lounge is what they used to call it, and these girls were modeling their feet, so it was
and he had a foot
it was
fetish.
the weirdest. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So it was strange, man.
So he was using his position of power. Let me guess, was he a straight white male?
Yep.
Yes, he was. God damn it. Another one. Like, we're such assholes. So he was using his job as the manager of a comedy club and a nightclub to hold shoe competitions because he had a foot fetish. That is fucking terrible to me.
Totally. I think I still have pictures of it, so I'll try to put it in the comment section of whatever we do.
Yeah,
So.
God, that's ridiculous. Well, let's move on from the flip-flop thing. So, you know, like we've got hashtag storytime coming up, John Slaton's hot celebrity gossip thing that we don't have a name for yet, but there's a lot kind of just going on that's not coronavirus related that I thought we could talk about, and that's wonderful because I'm sick and tired of talking about all the stuff with the coronavirus. And unfortunately, it looks like cancel culture is... Cancel culture took a little time off for the quarantine, you know, probably because nobody was going out and doing anything, but it's back already. Like, most states aren't even fully reopened yet, but cancel culture is reopened all the way. They're open for business. Jimmy Fallon's taking heat, which is weird for me to even think of why Jimmy Fallon would ever take heat for anything. He's the most like likable, giggly guy ever. I can't imagine him really being an asshole, but he's taking heat this week because of an SNL sketch that he did 20 years ago where he dressed up as Chris Rock. He was impersonating Chris Rock, so he dressed up in blackface and dressed up as a black dude because, shocker, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Chris Rock is black. So he dressed up as Chris Rock. So he had to apologize for this sketch that he did 20 years ago, and he apologized, and his apology was, I mean, it was like a decent apology, but just such an apology that appeals to all the mommy bloggers out there. And I know that Jimmy Fallon can't believe this either, but he said something to the effect of, "I'm sorry, I made a horrible judgment 20 years ago. I wore blackface in an SNL sketch impersonating Chris Rock, and I'm really sorry about it. And thank you for holding me accountable." Like, come on. Like, but you know, and part of me wants to be like, you know, this ridiculous. He's impersonating a person who happens to be a black person. It wasn't like he was just putting on blackface to create a caricature, a racist caricature of black people. Exactly. But I'm also a straight white male with a foot fetish. I don't have a foot fetish, but I'm also, so I really don't feel like I can speak on it, but Manny, you're black. Like, how does that affect, does this affect you in the same way? Like, because I feel like when this stuff comes out, like the Jimmy Fallon thing, to me, that sounds like middle-aged white lady mommy bloggers getting offended for black culture, and not actual black people getting offended. But I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Man, it's so hard because it's like, you know, Dave Chappelle said it best, I think, in one of his like stand-ups when he just came back. You know, when it was the Kramer thing, when Kramer shouted, you know, the N-word at an actual show, right? And he said, in that moment, I realized that I was like 20% black and like 80% comedian, because I was like, man, this motherfucker just said the N-word. But, you know, the other 80% of me, the comedian, was like, yo, this motherfucker's having a bad set, you know? And it's like...
That's really funny.
And that's kind of how I feel, man. It's like, you know, comedy's an art form that won't always be culture appropriate for, you know, you think about it and it's like, shit, me and Crystal were watching this Frank Sinatra thing, and this must have been from like the 60s, where he was singing, you know, that song, "The bees do it, do it, even," you know, and he says, "Even the Japs do it." I was, you know, let's fall in
There's
love.
so much racist
like,
shit from back in the day.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, you know, things were acceptable at a certain time. I'm not saying blackface was ever acceptable, but being a comedian, I guarantee you that conversation with Jimmy Fallon went like this. "Hey, Jimmy, you know what? You do the best Chris Rock impression on this show. Would you mind playing Chris Rock for this sketch?" And I bet you anything, everybody was like, yeah, man, do it. Like, I bet you Tracy Morgan was there and like, you know, in my best Tracy impression, he was like, yeah, man, you got to do that shit, you know? And like,
yeah, I wonder if they even, you know, 20 years ago on SNL actually had a conversation about the makeup part of it, the blackface makeup part of it. Like, I wonder if that was even a thought in their head, because, you know, 20 years ago on SNL, you can get away with a lot more than you can now, I think.
Exactly.
And I could see how, if they did have a conversation, it would be like, yeah, but we're like, he does a good Chris Rock. We need to make him look kind of like Chris Rock.
Yeah.
It's not like he's just painting a picture of an entire culture or making fun of a race. He's playing a character. And it's the same thing. Like, I got into a conversation once about Halloween costumes and people like talking about appropriating culture, and someone was talking about Moana. Like, their kid wanted to dress up as Moana, but they're white, and they're like, is that appropriating Hawaiian culture or whatever? And I was like, I don't think so, because I think you're dressing up as the actual character, you know. And unless if you're putting like brown face on your kid, all right, maybe that's a little stretch, but like, if you just like are putting on Moana's clothes, then that's the character. So I could see them having that conversation, but I just I don't know. I mean, you know, it doesn't offend me, but I don't have really the right to be offended by it, like with the same sensibilities. If it should offend me, that's why I wanted to see what you thought. Like, if it was actually, in this instance, something that, you know, would be offensive.
Yeah. Like, for me, it's not, but I could, you know, for maybe somebody else, you know, I like blackface in general. That shit is offensive. Like, way back in the day when they had the big lips and the really dark skin and trying to speak a certain way, like, that shit was offensive. But I mean, let's take for instance a great movie, Tropic Thunder. Like Robert Downey Jr. played a character that in the movie was like literally confused about his identity and played a hell of a role and did a great job. But now people are trying to.
He did such a good job. Is he taking any heat for that?
He has, and it's, you know, Jamie Foxx has come to his defense. Other, you know, black actors have come to his defense. But like you said, it's the mommy bloggers. It's a lot of, you know, and I'm not, when I say social justice warriors, there's people out there doing real work, and I really appreciate them because it's needed. But when you are picking apart somebody's career, or you're trying to cancel somebody because of something that happened 20, 30 years ago, it's like, come on, you know, that's such a place and time. And here's the thing, Jimmy Fallon has had, you know, he has, and I'm not saying it's, you know, just because you have a black friend, it's okay. But I mean, look at his band. It's the Roots crew. You know what I mean? You can't get any more, you know, black than that, you know? And it's like we accept him, you know, as far as, you know, he's always invited to the barbecue. So.
As long as he doesn't show up dressed like Chris Rock, that shit would be offensive. For sure. But, I mean, you know, I think just cancel, like, I honestly was wondering, like, after all this coronavirus stuff is over, will that whole thing kind of calm down a little bit? And it hasn't. And the thing that bothers me the most is they're focusing on, like, the wrong issues. Like Jimmy Fallon doing a comedic sketch, dressing up as another comedian who happens to be black. I mean, would it have been funny if he didn't like do makeup to make himself look black? I don't know. You know, would you have been able to buy into it? I don't know. But I think that is like, it's portraying a person, a specific person, and not, you know, just painting out like a culture, like I said. Also, you know, back in the day, in the 80s, 70s, 80s, I don't remember the exact time, but Eddie Murphy used to do this hilarious sketch where he would dress up as a white dude and go to places and experience it like a white person would, you know? So he'd get on the bus and like he'd dress up as a white guy, get on the bus, and then like the one black guy that was on the bus would get off, and then all of a sudden be a huge party, and he's like, this is how white people live. This is fucking amazing. Amazing sketch. He wore whiteface. Is like, I mean, you know,
I mean,
and is there a difference?
Think about this. Nick Cannon has also gone in whiteface. Eddie Murphy did, like you said. Chappelle has a character where he plays a few white guys. Yeah. But, you know, it's tough because there's the history of blackface. And I think that's why people are more sensitive towards, you know, a white person dressing up as a black character. Like, you know, Justin Trudeau from Canada caught a lot of heat for going as Arabian Nights and all that. But it's like, you know, we still have to... I still believe in redemption, man. You can say, you know, hey, my bad. I really, you know, that was in poor taste. That was poor judgment. I didn't mean any offense behind it. And we got to be able to move on. It's like, I think that there's just somebody out there who is mad that they didn't get a role or that they're not famous. And they want to bring down other people who, you know, they feel like maybe they'll get an opportunity from this. And it's not going to happen for you. Right. So
that's the thing that gets me about this kind of thing is like, it's 20 years later. On SNL, on Saturday Night Live, like in the grand scheme of things, unless it was, you know, something horribly hateful, you're gonna fucking waste your time over 20 years ago a sketch on SNL. Yeah. If it was him at home with a video camera in his own living room doing some racist shit that he made up, that's different. That's him being racist on his own time, not on a sketch comedy show that pushes boundaries and they may have made him a judgment and error doing that. But shouldn't you be focusing on other things? Like there's way bigger issues going on in the world than Jimmy Fallon, you know?
Dude,
like, my biggest problem with Jimmy Fallon is he can't fucking ever he can't ever do a sketch without breaking. The guy breaks every single time. Like, I like him, but he giggles at every fucking sketch. And to me, if you're a professional sketch artist, the sketch actor, you should be able to stay in character 99% of the time, but he giggles all the time, and then he makes it part of his act. Right. That's my biggest problem with him. That's the most offensive thing to me. But that's from a comedy standpoint, and I don't like people that break character. But he's hilarious. He's talented and everything else. I saw that, and I thought that was ridiculous. The other thing is, like, if we're talking about race, it was nice to see that the Karen in the park get canceled this week. This is like cancellation week. But did you see that video, John?
I saw a little bit of it. So tell me about it.
Man, you saw the video, right?
Yeah. I saw, the part where she was calling 911 and she had, basically said that she was like in danger and all this shit. So
here's what happened. Yeah, so this dude, black guy, was in the park bird watching. Okay, which by the way, I don't care what color you are. If you're an adult male in the park bird watching, you're a fucking weirdo. I don't care. I don't care. Black, white, Asian, whatever. To me, I have an issue with that. That's kind of strange.
Yeah.
But whatever. The guy likes to bird watch. But he was in the park, and I guess he asked her to put her dog on a leash because she didn't have her dog on a leash. And she said no. And then he said something to the effect of, well, you're not going to like what I'm going to do then. And then he took out dog treats because apparently this guy, he's an avid bird watcher. And which I don't understand why he has a problem with people's dogs not being on the leash, but in the park they're supposed to be on the leash. And I guess well, if he asks someone to put their dog on a leash and they don't do it, he'll throw dog treats out. So their dog's running around, so they have to put them on a leash. Which is kind of a smart way to do it. You know? So apparently he said that and then tossed a dog treat, and then that's when he started filming, and she called the police, and she was like talking to him, and she's like, well, I'm going to call the police, and I'm going to tell him there's an African-American man threatening me right now. And
doggy treats.
Yeah, and and the way that she did it, she was racist because if it was a white dude doing the same thing, I doubt she would go, I'm gonna get on the phone with the cops right now and tell them there's a Caucasian American threatening me right now. And the guy wasn't even threatening at all. But since then, she's lost her dog and her job. It's been a tough week for her. They took her dog too.
That's crazy, man. Shit.
Yeah.
They took her dog?
Yeah, she had a rescue dog, and in the video, she doesn't have the dog on the leash, and she's talking to this guy, you know, and she's like holding the dog, and the dog's trying to get up, and she like slams the dog to the ground and is talking to him. And so the place where she got the dog from, they actually took it back from her. So
they're like, you're not fit.
Yeah, you're not fit. You're a racist, and you're mean to the dog that we gave you. You think the dog's back in the rescue place? Like, man, thank God for getting out of there. Like, you should have heard what that bitch was saying at home. She was so racist. So she got canceled. The other thing that got canceled this week, the SpaceX launch. I was excited about that, but that was supposed to happen today, and because of weather, they had to move it to Saturday. So they're not going to be. They didn't launch the SpaceX thing today, which is crazy. I was really excited to see that. You know, that's the first launch on American soil in how long? Over 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, since 2011, and you know, so we'll see what happens on Saturday if they're going to do it. But I mean.
And it's a Tesla, so that's cool.
Yeah, there's going to make no noise. It's just going to go straight up into space, no noise, and drive itself.
I was watching the live stream earlier, looking forward to the launch, and I periodically checked in. And at one point, they had already got the astronauts, like, they're in their seats, buckled in, and then somebody comes on, T-minus 2 hours and 38 minutes till liftoff or launch or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, first thing that came to mind is like, that's a long time. I'd be like, could we unstrap me? I gotta go take a piss.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole world's watching for the space launch, and you just keep running in and out of the door because you have to go take a leak. Like, that's, to be right back. That's what I would be doing, definitely.
Sorry, have some coffee.
Yeah, too much coffee, a little bit jittery because we're going to space. That would be so nerve-wracking, though, to be on a space ship, a rocket about to be launched into space. That would be very nerve-wracking.
And especially the first one, you know, that's the big thing is like, I don't know how I'd feel. Like, this isn't NASA's rocket. This is SpaceX. This is Elon Musk's rocket. So to be the first person to do this, I'd be a little nervous. And then I do wonder how those new spacesuits work. Can they pee in those things, or how does it work?
Right. Yeah. And that was the other thing, too, about SpaceX is, one, it's not even NASA's thing. It's Elon Musk's. Like, you're basically the first people to fly in a spacecraft that is just from like a dude who's like very rich and has done well and great in technology and super smart and everything else. But it's basically a guy who was like, I'm going to create a spaceship and you're going to fly in that. And then the spacesuits and the spacecraft and everything else, they look like they were designed by Apple. So it's like, all right, you see, I'm more about functionality with this kind of stuff. Like, are you sure this is going to work? You know, because everything looks super trendy and super clean lines on everything, which you would expect from a guy who has been able to build such huge brands to make them look cool, but also that would be one of my biggest fears is like, hey, the windows in this spacecraft, they look fucking sleek. I like it.
Yeah.
But also, they're very thin, and are those things going to crack when we get into space? You know? That's what would scare me, too.
Man, I don't know. How about you, John? Would you do it?
Would I get launched into space?
Part of a test rocket.
Yeah, no. I don't think I'd sign up for that. No.
Not at all?
I don't know. I guess maybe it depends on what's going on in my life at the time. You know, I don't know. But you know, if you think about it, the fact that it's now a private company, it's not NASA that built it. It's kind of makes sense. I mean, if you look at going back in history in this country, most of all of our infrastructure was privately created.
Right.
You know, like the first big bridges across rivers, and you know, somebody owned those. You know, you had to pay to use their bridge. You know,
Yeah.
So you know the pipelines, railroads, everything. So it's almost kind of odd that our government started the space program, that it wasn't independently done.
Yeah.
So this almost seems a little more normal, looking at the history of how this country's evolved with
Right.
infrastructure and things like that.
So you would rather go on a Elon Musk spacecraft than a NASA spacecraft?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'd feel safer.
You should do it in blackface. Well, I'll look forward to seeing the launch on Saturday and seeing what happens. Okay, so Alex isn't here because she called in sick, so we're going to do hashtag storytime now. Hashtag storytime with Alex, even though Alex isn't here, is the best excuse for calling in sick to work, or the best reason why you called in sick to work. If she was here, she could deliver the hashtag so much better. Every time we do this, I don't know if you realize, like, she'll say what the hashtag is, and then I have to restate it like 4 or 5 times in different ways to really understand exactly what it is. So hashtag best excuse, best reason for calling in sick to work, best time you called in sick to work, hashtag fucking Christ. Manny, you can start.
All right. Well, my best excuse for calling in sick to work was the time that I got high with a bunch of comedians. And this is probably 10 years ago. So I won't say the comic's name, but his weed is so good. He has a show called The Dope Show. And I think you should all check it out. He's been on this podcast, but he had given me and a bunch of other comics some weed and these things called depth chargers, which are literally THC capsules for cancer patients, right? And they're supposed to do away with pain. I didn't know this. I had never been high before.
So it's like a super strong edible, basically?
Yeah, super strong edible.
Okay.
And I had literally, I ate it. Nothing happened. I go home. I fall asleep. I wake up at probably 2 a.m. and my body is feeling like I know exactly how big the universe is. And I feel my body expanding, going big, small, and my heart is beating out of my chest. So I literally thought I was going to go into cardiac arrest. I walked down the hill to the police station to get help because I thought I was going to die. And then I was like, oh, shit, you took an edible. And I'm walking down the street and I look like a T-Rex, or like I have some severe mental problem. So I walked back up the hill and I had my roommate at the time take me to the ER. And I called my mom at like 2 a.m. 3 a.m. because this was like an hour later. And I told her that I was dying. And it was just the weirdest shit. But the next morning I woke up and it was like 12 p.m. or like maybe 2 p.m. And my roommate had called in sick for me to work. So,
nice.
I no longer work for that company, but I got away with it. And
your roommate called in for you. You didn't even get a call in.
Yeah. I didn't even get to call my boss. I had my roommate call for me. So
funny.
I was still high at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. It was fucking insane.
Dude, the other night,
man,
there's this like edible drink that we got a while ago. And Alex and I, we were just hanging out before bed playing Halo. And I'm like, fuck it. You know what? That sounds fun. I'm going to have a little bit of that edible drink. and it knocked me on my ass. Same thing until like about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The next day, I was just like a zombie, and I felt like, because I'm a lightweight anyway. But man, they can knock you out sometimes. If I had a job that wasn't this right here, I'd call in sick for it. I probably would have called in sick for the podcast. If we had to do the podcast that day, I wouldn't have done it probably.
Dude, I mean, it's so potent.
Yeah, I know. Some of that stuff is so potent because I don't think they can actually really gauge how much THC they're putting in those, so it's like, unless you're a pro, don't eat the whole thing. If you're Manny Martin and you don't smoke weed very much, don't take a depth charger. That should have been your first fucking clue. It's called a depth charger. Like, put this explosive weed in your body. All right, John, what's your hashtag best reason or best time or best excuse for, what's the story?
Actually, before I tell my story, Manny, was that the time I heard you talk about this time you got so high you thought you had a pulse in your dick? Was that the time?
Yeah, same time.
Your dick? You told your mom that, right?
You told your mom that and she's like, yes, everybody has a heartbeat in their dick. There's a vein that goes right through there. Oh, that's hilarious.
Was trying not to embarrass my mother on this podcast, but whatever.
All right, John.
I don't feel I have a good call out of work story. I'm one of those guys that would always make it into work.
Really?
Like, something comes up where I didn't sleep. I'm going in. I'm sick. I don't
have a good story. I'm just a hard worker.
Yeah. I have called in for. It's been okay. This one time I was with this company, and I was a foreman for this painting company, and I didn't like to miss work, right? Because I had a crew to run.
Because I'm a hard worker.
And well, but then I was.
You're like little humble brags everywhere in your story today.
It's something. It's hard for me to call out. It's hard, but I was. I did for sex this one time, and I just didn't want to have it end, I guess, right? And
so you were having sex and you called in sick while you were having sex?
No, early the next morning.
To continue, okay.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want it to end. I figured you're like, hold on 1 second. I just gotta make a phone call real quick, and you just do the sick voice, Sorry, I'm sick.
I did do the sick voice, but I never, it had been 4 years since I called out, and I remember my boss was like, "You okay?" Because it was odd for me to call out. But I think one of the best stories is around that time. One of the guys on my crew, he called me to call out sick, and I answered the phone. He's like, "Yeah, this is Ted." I used to call him Rock and Roll Ted. He was one of those guys. He wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah.
He was always pissed off that he had to have a day job. Like, this is bullshit. I should be touring, having models sucking my dick, right? But he called me one morning. He's like, "I'm calling in well." I'm like, "What?" He said, "I feel too damn good to come into work, so I'm not coming in today."
Was that because he was fucked up or something?
It was always, God, that guy. I have so many stories of working with that guy. One morning he came up to me. He's like, "Yeah, I took all these pills last night, and I think I'm still really high. What should I do?" And I was expecting the owner of our company was going to come walk the job that day, which we never saw the owner. The owner may come to a job site once a year. You never saw him, but he was coming out that day. He wanted to walk it with me. And this is minutes before I was expecting him. And I just had to get rid of him. I'm like, "Okay, just Ted, go over here and just sit down in, the shop area and just stay there. I need to walk this job with Mark, and then we'll deal with that." Well, I'm walking the job with the big boss, the owner, and then here comes Ted all of a sudden. I'm like, "What, fuck?" And he came up. He's like, "Oh, I went to talk to these other people, told them the story, wanted to see what I should do. And you're Mark. You're the owner of the company. Nice to meet you. Good to put a name face with the name on my check. John, should I let Mark in on what's going on?" I'm like, "Go ahead." Right? He's like, "Yeah, this is the met his boss for the first time, right? Like tell him, I took these pills last night, a little high. Talked to someone else. They thought I should leave. What do you think? Like, it's probably a pretty good idea.
Probably get the fuck off of my job. So, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a good reason to call out sick to work, though, is, you're having sex and you want to keep having more sex.
Yeah. So I've done that.
What chick wants to have sex with a dude with a job, Yeah. I think probably one of the best times that I called out sick was I was doing radio, and I wanted to interview to be on another show, so I called in sick and I flew out to audition on another show, right? Mm-hmm. And I even used like a fake name and everything so that they wouldn't know that because it's like if you work at a regular job and you're like, hey, I'm actively really trying to leave this job. Like, I really don't like this job and I want to leave. So I'm going to fly across the country to like a town I don't even really want to live in to interview for this job. Not the best thing to tell your employer. So anyway, I called in sick and then I flew and then went and did this audition on the air, but I changed my name. But there was somebody in the town who recognized my voice, and then like just a listener to that radio show recognized my voice and my style and everything else, and we're like, then messaged them and was like, hey, I think I heard Jubal on this show today, like, because apparently they were like streaming one. They streamed one because on the East Coast, so they streamed one, and or they heard me and then they streamed the other one, so I was out sick, and then basically they blew me up, and then I got back, and I got an email, and it was like, we need to talk in the morning, and I was like, what the fuck? Oh, they probably must have heard that I was there. And then I got in and it's like, some listener said that they heard you on the air here. Did you? And I was like, I was interviewing for a job. I don't even like what. I mean, at that point I'm caught, so I was like, fuck, I want out of here. Comment though if you have any really good stories of calling out sick for work. I guarantee a lot of people do, and I've known some people that have been fired for it because of social media. I used to be friends with this dude who he worked in the liquor industry, but somebody called in sick to work and then was posting photos of themselves like out at a casino taking a bunch of shots, and then of course their employer saw that and they're fired. There's a lot of people that lose their jobs because of that. But comment on the YouTube if you're on the YouTube with your hashtag best whatever. I can't do it with Alex here. I cannot do the hashtag thing correctly without her here. The hashtag best call out sick from work story. Crazy called out sick from work story. Hashtag it. All right, now it's time to wrap up the podcast, and of course we have to do that with the most important segment in entertainment today.
He's got his finger on the pulse of Hollywood. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for John Slaton's Celebrity Gossip Roundup thingy. We still don't have a name for it.
All right, you got the finger guns popping, and that means the gossip is also popping. John, what kind of hot celebrity gossip do you have for us this week?
Well,
just blank. Well, fucking nothing. So that's it.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Well, I was the Kardashians. You can't get enough of them.
No.
We love them. We hate them.
Yeah.
Just found out Khloe. She just put her house on the market.
She was in the news last week for getting her hair cut.
Yeah, she looked completely
different. It sounds
different.
so lame when you say it, but that is the truth. Breaking news. She got her hair cut, but that's not what you're talking about. She put her house on the market?
She wants to get looking at something a little bigger. 11,000 square feet isn't enough.
You know this from your conversations with her about it, right? Like, you didn't just read this, you actually talked to her.
No.
Oh, you read this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes on my stories, I go straight to the source.
Yeah.
Sometimes
she was busy. She didn't have time to take a call, probably.
And I haven't been to her house that she just put on the market, but $19 million if anyone's looking for a house in Calabasas.
11,000 square feet?
11,000 square feet.
How many bathrooms that bad boy has?
Yeah, it's got 7.
Okay.
6 bedrooms.
That sounds like you're making that
bathrooms.
up. Sounds like you just threw out a number. It's got 7. Sure.
Whenever I hear of a house in Calabasas, I always think of You guys watch Ray Donovan?
No. What's
No.
Ray Donovan?
It's
It's on Showtime, right?
Manny and I, we try to stay up on entertainment as much as possible, but you're the entertainment guy, so of course you know what Ray Donovan is, and we don't. But why don't you tell us?
It's a show about somebody from Philadelphia moves to LA, and he's kind of like just one of those guys that can take care of things for you. Deals a lot with entertainers. Like if you need the story changed, he'll change your story. Like you're, I don't know, held up in a hotel room with a big celebrity,
right,
with a tranny, and there's all kinds of media outside, and you need to cover it up,
right?
Or she's dead, So he can.
He figures out a way to get rid of the bad press for you.
Yeah,
Jimmy Fallon could use him right now.
yeah. So, but his son, they lived in Calabasas, really nice neighborhood, and his son would complain about it. Calabasas, more like Calabasas. And so whenever I hear that, for some reason I hear his son say, more like Calabasas.
Every single time.
I don't know why. But kind of all over the place.
No, it's great. This is good.
But
it's hard-hitting stuff as usual.
Yeah, but what's interesting is during this quarantine time, she's actually been there held up with her ex,
Justin
Thompson.
Thompson?
Yeah, the father of her daughter.
Okay. Is that going good for them, you think?
Well, sources say yes, which I think that's kind of a true test. If you're, quarantining with somebody, and, but I don't know,
But it's probably a lot easier to quarantine with your ex, who's your baby daddy or whatever, in an 11,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
So he can be on one side, she can be on the other. I'm sure there's probably been people doing that in a studio apartment, and that's got to be rough.
Yeah. 11,000 square feet. That's a lot of space.
Yeah.
They've got.
Don't they have some bad history though? I mean, he wasn't there for the baby's birth or something like that, or how did that all play out?
He cheated on her a couple times, and I think right in the beginning of the birth. And then there's some stuff spreading about she's trying to use him for a sperm donor now for another kid,
another baby, huh?
Now, why would you do that if you fucked already? Why would you? I mean,
yeah.
Why would you just?
So she wants him to actually donate the sperm and not get it directly from the tap?
I don't know. When you hear the term sperm donor, you don't think of directly from the tap.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you've already had sex and you've already had a kid with somebody, why not just get it straight from the source?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless he contracted a new disease or something, then she may not want it from the source. So
yeah, and he is an NBA player.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you would probably know this, John, because you'd probably know this, John. I know you've talked with them, on occasion. So I mean, if you don't want to disclose your sources of all those conversations with the Kardashians and Tristan Thompson, we understand.
No, I've never been to this residence, which it's been owned by 3 different celebrities before she owned it.
Oh, really? Who owned it?
Justin Bieber before her, which she tore down his, skateboard ramp.
Is he pissed about that? He's probably pretty upset about that.
I don't know, but she tore that down. But before Justin Bieber owned it, Eddie Murphy.
Oh, wow.
House. Yeah.
Oh.
So. Yeah, it's it's ran through its course of celebrities. I've never been invited. It's kind of weird.
It's super weird. Because you're always invited to these posh celebrity parties.
Yeah.
Where you're getting all the info, so you can bring it onto the podcast and your gossip segment. So it's weird that you haven't been there.
Yeah, I know. It's 3 celebrities on this house. I don't know who's going to own it next, but I feel like it's going to be a celebrity.
Yeah. Probably a close personal friend of yours.
I don't know. Maybe somebody that maybe I've reported poorly on, and they won't invite me. So, maybe who was I shitting on recently? Post Malone. Maybe Post Malone.
Post Malone, yeah. You're very open about the fact that you don't like Post Malone. Maybe he'll buy it, and then you won't be invited to a party at that house, which is very sad because I know that it's a big life goal of yours to be invited to that particular house.
Yeah.
Calabasas.
All right. Well, thank you for that amazing story. And
I'll follow up when I find out who buys the house.
You got about 17 stories that you have to follow up on. And I look forward to the updates. So we'll find out which celebrity buys this house. If it's Post Malone, that would actually be crazy. But that was the Jubal Show for today. Make sure you check it out every single Wednesday. iTunes, YouTube, rate, review, comment, and subscribe to it. Don't forget about the Fresh to Death podcast every single Tuesday, only on YouTube, and the Fresh to Death podcast on Mondays. iTunes, YouTube, rate, review, comment, subscribe. Follow everybody on social media, even though she's not here today because she called in sick. Follow my hot ass wife, Alex Fresh. She's at that Dreas on the social media. Manny Martin is at Manny Martin Jr. and John Slaton is at John L. Slaton. And other than that, I guess we'll see you next week. Maybe by then we'll be starting to get out of the house. Maybe by then Manny can be in studio. Do you think you can actually be back in studio soon, or are you going to still be quarantining for a while?
I feel like I might quarantine for just like another week or two, just because of who I've been in contact with. But afterwards, I mean, I would really like to.
If nobody like has listened to the other podcasts to know who you've been in contact with, they're like, "Who the fuck has Manny been in contact with? What has Manny been doing?" I'm not even gonna answer the question.
All those flip-flops.
I'm not even gonna answer it. I'm gonna let you can go listen to the other podcasts if you want to know what Manny's talking about. But that just sounded so sketchy right there. Well, hopefully we can all get together soon and we can all kind of get back to normal soon and start doing shows and stuff again too. Because I'm going crazy. I'm going stir crazy. You know?
Same here.
Yeah, for sure.
What an awkward way to end it. Man, he kind of trailed off with his laughter, and I just said I'm going stir crazy, and then John just like, yeah, fuck this. So, fuck this. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See ya.
Bye, guys.